There are moments in politics that look ordinary at first glance. A phone call, a few lines quoted to reporters, a clarification issued calmly, and then the news cycle moves on. But sometimes those moments reveal more about power than any summit, treaty, or speech. This was one of those moments. It began with a private phone call between Donald Trump and Mark Carney. Soon after that call, U.S. officials briefed journalists. The message they pushed was simple and carefully framed. Carney had backed down. According to that version of events, the Davos speech had been softened. According to that narrative, pressure from the White House had worked. This was not presented as interpretation or spin. It was delivered as fact. In an interview with Fox News, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent claimed that Carney had walked back parts of his remarks. The implication was unmistakable. Trump had applied pressure. Canada had adjusted. Anyone familiar with Trump's political style recognized the pattern immediately. Private pressure, public victory, narrative first, details later. This approach has appeared again and again over the years. In 2018, after a call with Mexico during NAFTA renegotiations, Trump told reporters the deal was basically done. Mexican officials later contradicted that account. In 2020, after conversations with NATO leaders, Trump claimed allies had agreed to dramatic changes in defense spending. Several governments quietly clarified that this was not what had been discussed. The pattern is consistent. Apply pressure privately, leak a win publicly, force the other side to either accept the story or contradict the White House. Many leaders choose silence at that point. Silence avoids confrontation. Silence avoids escalation. Silence keeps the temperature down. But silence also allows the story to harden, and once it hardens, it becomes the accepted version of events. Journalists repeat it. Markets price it in. Allies absorb it as reality. This time, silence did not happen. Within hours, Mark Carney stepped in front of microphones. He did not insult Trump. He did not accuse anyone of lying. He did not question motives or intent. He simply corrected the record. "I meant what I said in Davos," he told reporters. He repeated the line. He emphasized it. Nothing had been walked back. Nothing had been softened. Nothing had changed. That single sentence did more damage to the White House narrative than any angry rebuttal could have, because it removed the ambiguity the narrative depended on. Carney confirmed the call took place. He confirmed Trump initiated. He confirmed the conversation was constructive. Then he drew a clear and unmistakable line. The position was unchanged. This was not defiance for show. It was procedural. It was factual. And that is precisely why it mattered. In diplomacy, how events are described often matters as much as what actually happened. This is why readouts exist. After nearly every call between leaders, governments release summaries. Those summaries shape how journalists report the exchange. They influence how investors react. They affect how allies interpret intent and resolve. Former U.S. Secretary of State James Baker once put it bluntly, "In diplomacy, perception is reality until corrected." Trump understands this better than most. That is why his team moves quickly to frame outcome. That is why leaks often appear within minutes of private calls. If the narrative sticks, the leverage sticks. If the other side stays quiet, the story becomes history. Carney understood this dynamic just as clearly. By going on the record immediately, he prevented the narrative from settling. By staying calm, he avoided creating a spectacle. By focusing on facts, he made the contradiction hard to dismiss. There was no emotional hook for escalation, no insult to respond to, no confrontation to dramatize, just a correction. This is a tactic seasoned diplomats recognize. Former German Chancellor Angela Merkel used it repeatedly during Trump's first term. When Trump claimed Germany had made commitments it had not, Merkel's office issued short, factual statements. No drama, no commentary, just clarity. The goal was never to embarrass Trump. It was to deny him narrative control. Carney's response followed the same logic. He explained what the call actually covered. He said he outlined Canada's diversification strategy. He spoke about new trade agreements. He referenced deals on multiple continents. He mentioned discussions with China. He framed these not as reactions to pressure, but as structural choices. That framing was critical. Structural choices are not easily reversed. They are not bargaining chips. They are signals of long-term direction. By describing Canada's position this way, Carney made one thing clear. This was not a conversation about concessions. It was a conversation about reality. Then came the most understated but damaging line. Carney said Trump understood the explanation. That sentence collapsed the White House narrative entirely. If Trump understood, then nothing had been extracted. If Trump understood, then no leverage had been applied. If Trump understood, then the call was informational, not coercive. In power politics, that distinction is decisive. Coercion implies control. Information implies limits. This is why the response landed so hard without sounding confrontational. It denied the White House the outcome it wanted to sell, and it did so without triggering a fight. Trump thrives on conflict. He thrives on reaction. He thrives on spectacle. A calm correction offers none of that. Former National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster once noted that Trump often interprets emotional responses as weakness or opportunity. Calm certainty, by contrast, gives him very little to work with. That dynamic was on full display here. The White House could not escalate without contradicting the calm tone. It could not double down without relitigating facts. The original leak lost momentum, and momentum is everything in narrative politics. Once momentum is gone, rebuilding it costs time, effort, and credibility. This does not mean Trump lost power in that moment. Power does not vanish overnight, but he did lose control of the story, and that matters because narrative control lowers the cost of pressure. When the story is accepted, pressure feels normal. When the story is challenged, pressure feels aggressive. Aggression draws scrutiny. Scrutiny costs change behavior. This is how small moments reshape larger dynamics, not through confrontation, but through discipline and timing. Carney did not claim victory. He did not frame the exchange as a triumph. He did not say tensions were resolved. He simply, and what did not happen? That restraint created a boundary. Canada would not accept false readouts. Canada would not allow pressure to be reframed as submission. Canada would speak for itself. Immediately, this sets a precedent, not just for Washington, but for other capitals watching closely. If one leader can correct the record calmly and effectively, others take note. It lowers the perceived risk of doing the same. It raises the standard for narrative manipulation. This is why the moment resonated beyond the immediate dispute. It was not about ego. It was about who gets to define reality. In the long run, these moments accumulate. They shape expectations. They influence how future calls are framed. They make pressure more expensive. This does not eliminate conflict. It does not guarantee smoother relations, but it narrows the space in which coercion can operate quietly. That is a meaningful shift, and it explains why a single sentence mattered so much. I meant what I said in Davos. No insult, no escalation, just a line drawn clearly and early. In power politics, that is often enough, because pressure only works when the other side accepts your version of events. This time, that acceptance never came, and that changed the math.